The contents on this channel are for learning, insight, and introspection.
Hey, YouTube. Hey, my people. You have made your way to a live, to another live at My Mind with Justify. So, yeah. All right. So, here is what it is. We have a good lineup for you today because, I came across that interview, which I know a lot of people probably came across that interview with Corey Holcomb. I think that's his name, right? Corey Holcomb. So here's the thing. I saw a lot of problems or a lot of red flags in his conversation. So here's how it is. We're going to talk about what I came across, and then we're going to explore other ideas when it comes to the dark side of power. So we're talking about the dark side of power. So here we go. This is our first clip.
Laugh, argue in the car. That's what a real relationship is. If you don't argue with your woman, and every once in a while, don't ever hurt your woman, don't ever punch your woman or nothing. Sometimes you gotta hold her head to the glass just to let her know you're stronger than her. If she don't know you're stronger than her, she gonna talk crazy. Hold her head to the glass. I mean, even if she called the cops, ain't no proof you held her head to the glass. At least that's how I live. Hold her head to the glass. When they see they really can't lift their head, I mean, do this again, they be like, okay. That's what it's all about.
So what I found that was problematic in this conversation that he had with Camp Newton, right? Because he's a whole nother problematic person in other areas. So what I found that was problematic with this interview was that he said, like, he basically, a lot of people like kind of stick up for him, talking about, okay, he's a comedian, so don't take what he's saying seriously in a sense. But he's a man of an older age now, and people are actually looking at him. He's having these platforms. So when you're saying adverse things, and and the sad part is when you even look into the comment section, you'll see that a lot of people actually are like they're cool with what he had to say. Hold on real quick. Sorry. So they're cool with what he had to say. So in that clip, and I'm gonna play it again since it's really short. I'm gonna play it again so we can hear what he had to say.
You supposed to laugh, argue in the car. That's what a real relationship is. If you don't argue with your woman, and every once in a while, don't ever hurt your woman, don't ever punch your woman or nothing. Sometimes you gotta hold her head to the glass just to let her know you're stronger than her. If she don't know you're stronger than her, she gonna talk crazy. Hold her head to the glass. I mean, even if she called the cops, ain't no proof you held her head to the glass. At least that's how I live. Hold her head to the glass. When they see they really can't lift their head, I mean, do this again, they be like, okay. That's what it's all about.
So I saw that as problematic, and here's why. He's saying, yeah, don't punch her, whatever, because when the cops come, such and such and such, he doesn't, basically for, I took it as, okay, no marks to be had, so that no case, so he don't catch a case or whatever the situation is. Now, if he is saying, though, push her on her head against the glass of the car, if y'all are arguing in the car, just to show that, to show her who is stronger, basically, right? My thing is, okay, we already know men are the stronger vessel. So if men are the stronger vessel, and he's pushing, and he's, advocating for pushing her head across the against the wall, against the, window of the car, just to kind of assert himself, why is it that you have to assert that much power in a situation, especially when it's verbal, and then you're even claiming that you're not wanting it to be seen by, you know, the authorities if that got involved, so don't leave a mark and all that other stuff. So pushing the head, she has nothing to say if you push her head against the wall. And what he doesn't understand is that in itself is still a B. Like, you're using your physical strength to do something to just for your ego, to assert yourself. So I thought that was problematic. I don't know, you know, if you disagree with me, fine. I mean, you know, I want to hear your point of view, but I thought that was problematic. And I saw too many people in the comments, like, not having an issue with what was said, whether it's hypothetical or not. He condones the action in itself. So I just thought that was kind of, you know, problematic. Then, while we're talking in the realm of power and pretty much abuse of power, this second clip also stood out to me from what I heard from him. Okay, now all right. I thought my mouse didn't want to work for a second. All right, so this clip also stood out for me for, like, the need for that power.
I can control them better. A girl who can't afford to say, fuck you, Corey, I'm gone. She just can't afford to do it. So I take advantage of that. Now, that might be wrong, but her poverty and my needs, most of the time, it even out. I don't really need a lot of their time. And they don't tell me to fuck off because they know when I come over, they children can get some.
Hold up. God damn.
Some outlet Jordans.
Outlet Gucci.
Yeah.
Outlet Gucci. But how you speak of women, right, where you want control. Is there ever...
I want control that is taken by force. I want control because I'm the one who is the leader of the pack, naturally.
So could you see yourself in a situation where a woman makes as much as you or more than you?
I like women who make money, just I can't do nothing with you other than sleep with you. If you could take care of yourself, you're going to think you could talk to me. I don't like you talking to me a lot. I know you got your own money and all like that, so if you want to, we can hook up, hang out, do that for a minute. But I'm saying, girls in poverty, because they have a deficiency. Poverty is a deficiency out here in America. I can fix your little deficiency if you do what I want you to do. I think it's an even exchange.
Yeah, but do you see how that comes off as...
No. How does it come off? It's this. Look, we're exchanging services.
Okay, but that's not prostitution?
It's all prostitution. What's not prostitution? The only woman who not prostituting, not a woman that's married to their husband. Everything else, you owe.
So you heard him. So basically, he prefers the dating someone in poverty, you know, from what he said, because basically of the power dynamics. So they're in need. He's able to give them what they need as well. And then in return, he gets to exercise his power, his dominance, all of that in the relationship. I mean, if it's even a relationship, because even the way he's talking, you know, a lot of the way that, you know, a lot of this modern society think of things with how loosely it is with even, like, you know, like it feels like situationships are being equated with something substantial, where I think that's like the issue a lot. So, because obviously, even with how he's talking, there's no interest in the woman herself only pretty much what he can get out of it for himself, and that's like his main thing, and being able to dominate it. And sometimes, like, you know, when you're even like in the church realm and everything like that, and you know, like the man is the head and the woman, you know, even in that step, it's, I always say, like, if that's your beliefs and everything too, I don't think that it's something that needs to be like drilled or, you know, forced on someone or anything like that. You come forward with the leadership attributes, you're going to have followers. You're going to have people that step in line. You're going to have to, you know, that's just something I'm talking about, like even in jobs or whatever the situation is. So if you find that, like, you know, I never got it too. Like when people go, when like men go around and be like, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. And I'm like, okay, if you have to say it all the time, then there's something questionable where, you know, if you feel the need to declare it all the time. Sometimes when a man walks into a room and they're dignified and they, you know, have things, you know, they look put together, all that stuff like that, it commands a certain, you know, attention that you don't even have to declare anything, to be honest. So, you know, that's just my opinion with it, with that part. So he dates women in poverty to control, for the controlling aspect, right? And then, other than like that blatant, you know, misogyny, because, you know, he comes across very misogynistic to me. I know that's like a trigger word for a lot of people lately, but I mean, when it applies, let it fly. Like, that's just what it is. But, you know, other than that, is that's what I pulled out of it, that like need for that power and that control. And it's like he has to go out of his way. Maybe there's something lacking in him for him to have to go out of his way to get that need of power and control, to get that satisfied. So, you know, with that, and, you know, I think sometimes there's certain personality types that can lead to the abuse of power, as you even saw in that first video where he's talking about, listen, sometimes you just gotta push her head on the car window to show her who has, you know, has the most strength, who is, you know, who's the stronger one in this relationship and whatever, and to assert your strength, like, basically. So then with that abuse of power, I can sometimes there may be like a breakdown with like a diverse effect on humanity, because and I say that for my next clip. So this clip, if you ever heard of it, it's quite unfortunate. I know that there's like a movie now on Tubi, I believe it is, and that is about the Stanford prison experiments. So with the Stanford prison experiments, basically, this psychology, it was a psychological experiment carried out in August of 1971. So if you saw this already, fine. I didn't see the movie, the documentary yet. I'm going to go watch it, but I know that I came across it in my psych class. So coming across it in my psych class, I already knew about this situation. So basically, it's an experiment that was done from students from Stanford. Well, the professor was from Stanford and Stanford University, and he was a psychologist. And it was a experiment that was supposed to be 2 weeks, a 2-week long experiment. But because of how crazy it got with how horrible they were treating each other, they had to cut it short to 6 days. So now in this experiment, an ad was they ran an ad basically to get volunteers, right? And the professor's name was Philip Zimbardo. I think he just actually passed away not too long ago, like probably a couple weeks ago, a week or more ago. And he basically he managed the research team administering the study, right? So the volunteers were compensated $15 per day and if they were male students, they took assessments for their psychological stability, and then out of the amount of people that they chose, that they assessed, they only chose about, I think, 24 of them. And out of that 24, they divided them to prison guards and prisoners. And they had like actual police officers come and pick them up, handcuff them, take them to the prisons, right? And then they were to actually play those roles. And they were, they were kind of stuck there in that, like it was a simulation. It was a simulation of prison life. I know that they have some reality shows now that's kind of, touching it a little bit, but no, this was like real. Like they had the uniforms, they had clubs, they had, they put shades on them, they did all of that. So here's a breakdown, because of course, sometimes these clips can say it way better than I do. And here's a breakdown of some things that happened in the prison.
1971, Stanford University hosted one of the most controversial and disturbing psychological studies ever conducted that quickly spiraled into a nightmare, the Stanford Prison Experiment. Led by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, it explored the effects of perceived power in a simulated prison environment. 24 male Stanford students were screened and randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners. Within days, the guards exhibited increasingly abusive behaviors, tormenting and dehumanizing prisoners. Prisoners experienced psychological torture. They were stripped of their identities, denied food and bedding, forced to perform degrading tasks, and placed in solitary confinement. The line between reality and role-play blurred as the participants fully embodied their roles. Some guards became excessively cruel, relishing their newfound authority. The prisoners showed signs of extreme stress and became depressed and passive. One prisoner, identified as 86112, suffered a severe breakdown 36 hours into the experiment, leading to his early release. Despite this, the cruelty continued, with guards escalating their sadistic behavior. The chilling transformation of ordinary individuals into tyrants and victims shocked even Zimbardo, who ultimately terminated the experiment after only 6 days due to the extreme emotional distress inflicted. The Stanford Prison Experiment remains a stark reminder of how quickly humanity can descend into darkness under the right conditions.
So you saw how that went down. So they basically became so cruel. Some people had like a whole psychological break because of this. And these were people that, as I said before, they did assessments and they did psychological assessments. And just to think that even after all of that, in these circumstances, some people actually went above and beyond and they were role playing, really, but it got so excessive and people took it so seriously that they had to cut it short. They went in. Some people had psychological breaks. Some people had, like, the conditions were cruel. There were some other places where I heard like they hit them with the baton that they had and all that other stuff, the clubs. So it's like, it makes me think, like, what made it click in them, especially being that it was role playing. What made it click in their heads to go to that extent, to actually hurt other people and everything, knowing that they're not real guards and those are not real prisoners in the back of their head, really. So what made them really go like that far? You know, and it makes me think even about the law enforcement now, where, you know, they have some police officers that go a little bit too far when it comes to enforcing the law. What, like, you know, it's like the power gets to people's head, because even with the experiment, it wasn't real power necessarily. Like, you know, it was, you know, a temporary experiment. So what made that power get to their head? Or did it just like, did it feed something that they needed at that moment with that power, and they went overboard, you know? So I have actually this other clip too, where it talks more about that experiment.
How people respond to a cruel environment without clear rules.
I think he and everybody else who came down into that situation got caught up into that situation. And the sense that this was an experiment, that began to fade away. It became just life.
We frankly didn't anticipate what was going to happen. And we tried to really test the power of the environment to change and transform otherwise normal people, much as Milgram had changed or transformed otherwise normal people in an obedience situation. We wanted to do it in a prison-like situation.
Over 70 men volunteered for Zimbardo's experiment.
And they completed a battery of psychological tests. We picked 24 who were the most normal and most healthy. Half are going to be guards, half are going to be prisoners. And it's like flipping a coin, and heads, this one's a guard, this one's a prisoner. So at the beginning, there's no difference in the kinds of people who are in your two groups.
When we were given our jobs as guards, we were issued a uniform, which was a plain sort of khaki or lighter colored uniform.
And then we gave them the symbols of power, handcuffs, a whistle, a big billy club. And then the other thing we gave them were silver reflecting sunglasses.
When you have mirror sunglasses on, then nobody can see your eyeballs. I think that anytime you put on what essentially is a mask, and you mask your identity, then it allows you to behave in ways that you would not behave if you didn't have the mask on.
To make it more realistic, I had arranged with this Palo Alto Police Department to make mock arrests.
When I was arrested, it was a surprise to me. I didn't think I was going to be brought to an actual police station. I didn't think I was going to go through a booking process.
The guards then put a blindfold on them, stripped them naked, and then they put them in dresses, smocks with no underpants. Each had a number that replaced their name. They had to know the number. They could only be referred to by that number. And they had a chain on one foot, which was put there to remind them at all times of their loss of freedom. So all of these things produces a sense of being dehumanized. On the first day, I said, this is not going to work. I mean, the guards felt awkward giving orders, and they'd say, okay, line up, repeat your numbers, and the prisoners start giggling. And then a very interesting thing happened. Dave Eshelman, who the prisoners named John Wayne, like he's a Wild West cowboy, he begins to be more extreme.
I decided that I would become the worst, most intimidating, cruel prison guard that I could possibly be. I was sort of fascinated.
So what was crazy with this whole thing was that, you know, the last guy, he's the one of those that said, like, he was the guard, and he decided he wanted to be the craziest that he wanted it, you know, wanted to be. He decided he was going to be the craziest guard. My thing is, it's like, what was there ever a click in his head that, okay, this is another human being, and this is not even real for me to be using such extensive force. That was where I was like, okay, what is going on? Like, where does that clip go? Because to me, this is me. If you are inherently a good person, doesn't matter what the situation is, I feel like you shouldn't really go too far from that. Like, why is it that they went that extreme? Like, what is that switch, And I'm sure we probably find that in the write-up from the reflection from all of this after they were done with the experiment. But it's just when you're just looking at it naturally from a humanity standpoint, you're like, okay, how does that switch happen? Like, you can never think of yourself as, okay, if I'm in this situation, I'm gonna be that one, like clubbing somebody, doing something extra, when it's not even a actual scenario. And then much less look at it translated in the world today, when with those cops that decides to use excessive force when that's not what they're there for. Like, it's a power thing, and that's why I call this the dark side of power, because sometimes that need for power, it can blind some people to be like, okay, I don't really care. I just like this power. I like how it feels. Who cares? Just once I get what I want to get out of it. Just like even with the first interview with Corey Holcomb, he wanted what he wanted out of the situation. Who cares about if it hurts the woman, if it hurts, anybody else in the scenario, just once he got what he needed out of the situation, and it's like a selfishness that comes with it, really, if you think about it. But it's just kind of sad when you really think about that whole scenario. And I'm actually going to go and watch that documentary. It should be, I heard it's very interesting. But now let's move on, talking a little bit about power. So I kind of like what this guy had to say. Now, he was more so talking about in like, a man in a relationship with a woman, but I still think that there are some gems in here that we can take out altogether.
Whatever is in you, it'll come out of you. Whatever is in your heart, it's going to come out your mouth. I remember when I started changing my life and I started realizing that I had to treat women better. I remember standing in the mirror asking myself if that's how I wanted to be remembered, as a man that disrespected women, as a man that mistreated women, as a man that did not hold the mantle of manhood very, very high. I remember some of the things I used to say to women and how verbally abusive I was, and how I would say the ugliest things and how it would not matter to me. And when I started getting convicted about my behavior with women, I remember standing in the mirror asking myself, what's in you that would make you say things like that to women? Or what's in my heart that would make things like that come out of my mouth? And I would not be convicted about the things I was saying, and I wouldn't care about how I may have hurt my girlfriend or my wife. Listen to me. If you are a man and you are verbally abusing women, you got to get your ass in the mirror and you got to start asking yourself, what is it in me that makes me think it's okay to treat, talk, and abuse a woman like this? Grown men do not get off on beating women down and tearing men down. If you are the type of man that gets off on verbally abusing a woman, that is sucker shit. And you need to stand in the mirror and ask yourself, what is it in me that makes me think it's okay to handle women like this? Big Coach.
So what I liked about what he said, and that was the nugget that I wanted to talk about, was that what's in you is what usually comes out. So when you see that, like the negative coming out of coming from you, then you have to kind of see like, okay, what is it that I have to deal with? Why this negativity is coming out? What is going on? So I thought that was like a good nugget, really, when you're thinking about even with power, because no, it shouldn't be that you're a totally different person when you assess power. You know, it should not be such a drastic change. You know, when it comes to, you know, your morale and your heart and who you really are. I mean, that's just my opinion. I feel like, you know, you just got to stay true to you. But here's another thing, which I know it's like about it's like a saying from like a typical saying that some people know. I never heard the saying before, but I saw it around quite a bit. But what I did like was how what this guy said about that saying.
Phrase absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's absolutely wrong. It's not true. Absolute power does not corrupt absolutely. Absolute power reveals absolutely. From the scriptures, God has absolute power. And it doesn't corrupt him. He's incorruptible. So actually, you can use power for good. You only know who you are as you are empowered, as you have power.
So I like what he said, as in to say, you know who you are as you have power. So it's like, he's not saying absolute power destroys, you know, absolutely, corrupts, absolutely. He's saying that absolute power reveals. And I really like that idea because, you know, as much as a lot of people are revealed when they have power. Like even when you think about, like even when people have access to money, whether through stardom, whatever the situation is, sometimes that extra power that comes with it, it reveals who they really are. You know, and it shows you a whole person, sometimes someone that you may not have known before. So he's talking about like absolute power reveals true power. So I really love that idea of it. So my thing is just stay true to who you are, no matter how much power you attain, however you go about the way. Because even you know, a lot of times we hear about, even when you go on a date, sometimes you watch the person because the way they treat, even like, you know, waiters and everything, if they're treating them horribly, then that kind of will give you an insight into that person's character sometimes. So, you know, that's just something that I've heard along the way when it comes to dating. So, like, you know, there is a dark side to power, and we have to be aware of it because, you know, we see it all the time, whether in our government, you know, you know, the other facets, like, you know, like the police department, you know, just a lot, even on the street, you know, they have their power levels and everything with how they move and everything. So there is a dark side that comes to power, but being empowered, you know, staying true to yourself with the when you attain power, that's a different view, a different step. So, you know, just keep that in mind as you proceed, because of course, as you saw with that experiment, that Stanford experiment, power can be taken advantage of and it can turn ugly. So that's all I got for today. I just thought, you know, came across those interviews and came across the documentary. So I thought, okay, that would be something great to talk about. So until next time, don't forget, you either control your mind or it controls you. Until next time, peace.